Let's talk about the RRSP, also known as the Registered Retirement Savings Plan. So basically, this is a government registered account that is designed to do one thing really well, and that's defer tax. You put your money into it today and you get a tax deduction on that money, and the money inside the account grows completely sheltered from tax. And then eventually, when you pull the money out, you pay tax at that time. And that simple fact that you're paying tax all the way when you're retired and withdrawing this money rather than now is the tax deferral element. Now, just like we talked about with the TFSA, the RRSP is a container and you decide what you put in it. The account itself isn't doing anything just sitting there other than that tax deferral. What you decide to hold with the money in that account is going to decide how much it grows over time. So when you contribute to your RRSP or you move money to this account, you're essentially telling the government that, hey, I made this money, but I'm not going to use it until retirement, so don't tax me on it right now. And the CRA says, fine, we'll defer that tax. And then the idea is that when you retire, you're going to be in a lower tax bracket than you are right now during your peak earning years. So the money you put in, there's no tax, and the money you take out is theoretically lower tax. So let's use an example to illustrate the advantage of the account. Let's say you're in your peak earning years. You're not incorporated, nothing complicated right now. You're just you, and you're making a $400,000 salary. And we'll talk about tax brackets later, but just for the sake of example, on your top dollars here, let's say you're going to be paying 50% tax. But then when you're retired, let's say you're only going to take out $80,000 a year from your RRSP. That's going to be taxed at roughly, let's say 30%. So that 20% spread in tax is basically your gain. And again, these are just round numbers. They're not accurate, but it's just to illustrate the example. So whatever you contribute to your RRSP, you can think of it as avoiding 50% in tax. And then later when you use it, you only pay 30% in tax. Now let's talk about some real numbers in the contribution room. So every year when you're earning income, you generate RRSP contribution room. That's 18% of your prior year's earned income up to a maximum amount. So for 2026, that cap is $33,810. In 2025, it was $32,490, and it generally goes up every year. So let's say in 2025, you earned $188,000 or more, roughly. So 18% of that means you would have met the maximum amount you could put in at $33,810 for the 2026 RRSP year. That extra $2,000-$3,000, it doesn't matter that you made more than $187,000. It's either 18% of what you made or a maximum amount that you can do every year. So always be sure to check your CRA account for the specific amount that you have available. And just like the TFSA, any unused contribution room is going to carry forward for you. So if you've been working for 10 years and you never maxed out your RSP, you could have like $200,000 of room sitting there waiting. But again, always check your account for your specific numbers. Now the dates matter too. The TFSA was a little bit simpler. It's just January 1st to December 31st. In the case of the RRSP, you actually have up to 60 days after December 31st to make a contribution. So for example, in 2026, that would have been March 2nd. So any contributions that you made in January or February of 2026 could still be applied to your 2025 tax return. And this is where some planning comes in. So if you had a big income year or bonus come in for a particular year and you want to reduce that tax bill, you still have time to act even after that calendar year is over. Now, like I mentioned earlier, just like the TFSA, the RRSP itself is just a container. By itself, it's giving you that tax deferral advantage, but the real advantage is in that money growing within the account tax-free. You can theoretically hold things like a GIC or a savings account type setup earning like 1 or 2%. And it's obviously up to you and whatever your financial goals and situation is. But just like the TFSA, the higher growth things would be things like stocks, ETFs, mutual funds, individual stocks, etc. I'm not your financial advisor. Obviously, always do your own research and make your own decisions. But the point is, within that container, you can hold whatever you decide on. And whether that amount goes up 1,000% or 10% or 10,000%, it's all growing tax-free. As far as where to open one, you can do it through your bank, but keep in mind that bank trading platforms usually have higher commission fees. I personally use Wealthsimple. I'm not associated with them in any way. I just like the platform. You can use Questrade, your bank, whatever platform you prefer. You just go to their website, enter the information. It's a very straightforward process. Just a quick note that if you are going to hold American dividend paying stocks or ETFs, the RRSP actually has an advantage over the TFSA, where there's a tax treaty between Canada and the US, where if you hold it in your RRSP, the usual 15% dividend withholding tax that you have to pay for American investments, that's waived in an RRSP, whereas in a TFSA, you do have to pay that. It's usually automatically deducted before you even receive the dividend. Now, this has never made a difference to me in terms of what I decide to hold, but it's just something to know. Personally, I keep it simple. I just hold VFV, which is a S&P 500 ETF, and I never think about it ever again. But again, do your own research based on your own goals and risk profile. Now, just a couple bonus things that are attached to the RRSP are the home buyers plan and the lifelong learning plan, and we'll make videos individually about these. But the bottom line is that with the home buyers plan, if you're a first time home buyer, you can withdraw up to $60,000 from your RRSP tax free towards the purchase of a home. A couple can withdraw $60,000 each, so $120,000, and you have 15 years to repay it into your RRSP, and the repayment starts 5 years after the withdrawal. If you miss a repayment in any given year, that missed amount is going to be added to your taxable income for that year, so just be mindful of that. And with the lifelong learning plan, you can withdraw up to $10,000 per year, up to a maximum of $20,000 total to pay for full-time education for either yourself or your spouse, and you have 10 years to repay this. And the advantage of both of these programs is that you get to tap in to tax-free money before retirement, but obviously you have to have a legitimate reason to do so. Now, there's a couple other things worth keeping in mind, especially if you're a high earner. The spousal RRSP is one of them. So if you have a spouse or a common law partner who earns significantly less than you do, or who's going to have a lower retirement income, contributing to their spousal RRSP is a really good income splitting move that's available to you. So when you contribute to their RRSP, you're using your own room and you get that tax deduction, but the money's going to sit in their name in their RRSP account. And then when the time comes for retirement and they pull from the RRSP, they're going to pay taxes at a lower rate. So the result of this is that overall, as a household, you're withdrawing from the same total dollars, but you're paying less tax overall because the income is being split between two people instead of just being concentrated on the high earner. Another thing is the deferred deduction. So if you're in a moderate tax bracket right now, but you know that your income is going up, you can make that contribution now and start investing and getting that tax-free compounding going. But you can hold off on claiming the deduction until a future year when you're in a higher tax bracket, when the deduction is going to be worth more. So this way you get the best of both worlds. You get early growth with tax-free funds in your investment portfolio and a larger tax refund later. And then the question always comes up, RRSP versus TFSA. And the answer is the RRSP wins in your favor when the tax rate today is meaningfully higher than your expected tax rate in retirement. That's the bottom line. So if you're earning $200,000 and paying tax at a 50% rate on your top dollars and you expect to retire on $80,000 a year, then the RRSP is almost always going to be the first priority. The TFSA is going to be the first priority when your current tax rate is low and when you're early in your career, your income is variable, or when you expect your retirement income to be just as high as your working income. But if you're in the position where you can contribute to both, you should absolutely use and max out both. Anytime the government is giving you a fully legal, legit way for you to save on taxes and use your hard-earned money for yourself rather than handing it over to them, you should absolutely use it. Now, a quick note, if you are incorporated, just make sure that you know that when you pay yourself through dividends only, that does not create RRSP room. It's only based on salaried income or earned income even from other sources, but not dividend income. And that's a conversation you should have with your accountant, what makes the most sense for you, but it's just something to note. Now let's talk about withdrawals. We already talked about those special programs like the home buyers plan and the learning plan that allow you to withdraw for those reasons. But when you're withdrawing as income, you can technically do it at any age. It just comes down to what your total income is going to be for that year, and keeping in mind that you're going to be taxed on this RRSP income as an income. So it only makes sense really tax-wise to do it once you're retired and you don't have other income coming in. So when you do withdraw, it's going to be taxed as ordinary income. And keep in mind, you're going to lose that contribution room once you do withdraw. It doesn't reset or get added to your next year's contribution room like it does for your TFSA. Now, you don't have to withdraw by any age, but one thing to keep in mind is the number 71. When you turn 71 years old, by December 31st of that year, you have to close your RRSP. And at this point, you have a few different options. And the most common one is it turns into an RRIF, which is a Registered Retirement Income Fund. So all that happens is that it turns into this name fund, and then every year onward, you have to take withdrawals from that fund. And the amount, again, is a conversation to have with your accountant. How much makes sense, how much you need, what's the tax penalty on that, things like that. You can also buy an annuity at that point or withdraw the entire amount, but that's not very tax efficient and it's not commonly done. When it comes to withdrawals, there's also a couple other things to keep in mind. The amount of income you're receiving at certain ages is also going to change your pension fund and your old age security clawback. And we'll make videos about those things, but this is just a general breakdown for the RRSP. And in terms of these withdrawals from the RRIF, it's basically a percentage depending on what your age is. So for example, let's say you turn that account into an RRIF and there's $1 million in there. Based on the current numbers, at the age of 71, you have to withdraw 5.28% from that account for that year. So $52,800 minimum. All right, guys, so that's everything for now for the RRSP. Again, a very valuable account and a way to defer taxes and in some cases save them depending on how you plan it out with your accountant. Definitely look into it. Definitely start planning early. Again, these were the basics. There's aspects of this that we'll make different videos on. But hopefully that helped you guys out, and we'll see you next time.